Welcome to the Mix Minus podcast. He's back again so quickly. Josh Jacobs. Why do I want to call you Josh Jackson?
I don't know. Where was the intro music this time? We're just going.
The intro music never is in this part. You've just pulled the cloak up.
Josh Jack. Maybe you're thinking Phil Jackson because you know me. I'm a basketball.
No, is
fan.
it Joshua Jackson? Wasn't he Pacey from Dawson's Creek? And he was in Fringe, and he's in The Affair. You know Joshua Jackson.
You know what? I didn't watch any of those shows. I like Friday Night Lights, and people compared Friday Night Lights to Dawson's Creek.
Okay. It's amazing how you can go through a period of time, and I'm not singling you out, it's not your fault, but I've had this with certain things. If you don't watch certain shows in like a perfect, they happen to be like down a perfect avenue where somebody's whole career can go on, and he's in many shows that are considered pretty big shows, right? And from when we're kids to now, and you just never came in contact with him. It's kind of funny, isn't it?
I guess so.
Your namesake.
Now I'm starting to think, did you even say Josh Jacobs? Josh Jacobs here. Did you just call me Josh Jackson? And people are like, wait a minute, what's this guy's name?
No, I did say. I think I said it.
Oh, you did. Do you know what you need here? You need to really do the full Joe Rogan effect and make your YouTube channel lit and have us on streaming live, where it's visual too.
I've done streaming.
Have you? It's really cool seeing that.
You could do it with Google Hangouts, although it's not Hangouts anymore. I think it's YouTube Live now. But I would do that. The difficulty is the hardware with the cameras. So I would use webcams, and they were fine. But when you start getting into webcams that need to go back and forth between people, it gets difficult. There's some software you can do it on a computer, but I've got enough equipment here as it is. The minute you start bringing video into the mix, I need to hire two people.
Well, I got to just say your studio is lit. It's a really nice studio. I mean, I remember you posted the studio picture on your
You
Instagram.
mean lit like in the street?
It's just lit. Like this is a dope studio.
Like, it's lit as well.
Yeah. Like you want me to do a podcast, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I just have to start driving here weekly just to use your studio, take advantage of it, because I don't have the technology, nor do I necessarily have the technology wherewithal to do my own thing. But I'm putting my faith in you that you're gonna show me the ropes.
Well, I've had a hard day. I'm off. I worked the last 2 days, but I'm off from today, which is almost New Year's Eve is Saturday, so today is Thursday. So that
Thursday
would be
the 29th.
So today would be Thursday the 29th. So I'm off today. We're all off Monday. Go back Tuesday. But when you have a kid, it doesn't matter. You're
right.
never off.
No.
And there are times where I will actually say to myself, "Oh, I'm going to work. This is," and that's awful because I don't mean it that way. Like, you love your kid, but. We tried potty training earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday, complete disaster. He's just not ready, I think. And then you read these books that are like, you can have it done in 3 days if you're completely militaristic about it. Let him go to sleep in underwear. Always wear underwear. There are people who are like, let them go naked. And it wasn't working. And then all of a sudden you start getting frustrated and you have like 14 accidents in a day, and it's like having a puppy. You can only take so many accidents on the floor. And then all of a sudden, I feel like the kid starts losing confidence in himself. And at some point, you just have to say, I think we're not ready yet. It's not my fault, right?
Yeah, well, they say, and I've written about it before on Facebook, like my daughter is going to be 3 in March, but she's special needs. So my wife has tried to potty train her, and it wasn't always to great effect. It was tough, but she's going to get a new instructor. Apparently, it's going to start coming one day a week, really early in the morning, help her change, get potty trained. So we're looking forward to that. I mean, that's like parent life. You're excited about this, you know?
Parenting, it's so great, but it really is amazing the way it changes your life to such a degree. And a lot of people might take that and go, oh, I don't think I'm gonna have kids. Like, it's great. It's like a great drug hit, you know? like someone who takes a drug, and I haven't taken heroin or anything like that, but someone who might take a drug like that goes, oh, I can't go back to the way things were. That was so overwhelmingly amazing, the way it flooded endorphins or flooded whatever it is. And I can't go back, so they almost keep using, right, to get that same high. The high of having a child is like, it overwhelms your being. But like, as it goes on, it's crazy the way it changes the constitution of your being and your brain and like the way you're always thinking about another human being. And I think as men, we never did that before, really. I mean, you think of people, but we're sort of loners in a way. You do your own thing. You got your own books. You totally, I think with men, we can just, we can entertain ourselves pretty easily. And then when you now got a kid, it's like, oh man, this is interesting. And it's hard to find your little niche in it all.
I want to look this up because you remind me a couple of things. But there's one book I saw. I don't know the author, but it was called All Happiness and No Joy, like modern parenting.
Yeah.
You're very happy as a parent, but there's no more joy.
Yes.
Like, and there was this article I just saw where it says, what it takes a village, and how we really don't have that infrastructure in place. The inconvenient truth about child support. FreshTakesMags.com. I got it off of a friend's status on Facebook.
Just be careful with that. You hear the noise.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
The Inconvenient Truth About Child Support. And it's by Suber Add-on. And it was June 10th, 2014. I'm sure it's just as relevant. So I just bookmarked it to read it. Yeah, just as relevant. And, all happiness, no joy. Because it's like there's a great deal of happiness, but the joy, it's like the responsibilities of child rearing. It's an awesome responsibility. It's tremendous. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I totally hear what you're saying. You raise another point about just being a guy and loners and stuff. I won't go into that thought, but I did start a new job, which is exciting, actually.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Okay, so I'll tell you. So I've been trying to pursue teacher certification, and in my local school district, there's such a shortage of substitute teachers. I got a full-time permanent building substitute teaching position at the high school.
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I guess I will share this part too. So I got it. I'm going to be there through the end of the year, try and find a program to get certification. It might not be one of those quick ones like New York City Teaching Fellows, might be a 2-year program, but if I have this, it's helpful. So sometimes
you're in, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not certified yet, but it's cool. But I started Tuesday. I went to 4 days, and obviously now I'm with the kids. I got school break too. So to your point, yeah, it's like almost more tiring being with my daughter home every day. But your other point being loners, and my wife has said this too, that even as a gay man, you need women in your life because women provide that nurturing nature to you and loving. And I even just see it like every day in the school. Like I see these girls, they come up to each other and they hug each other. They're like, oh, I love you so much. And they have that intimacy. And, it's almost like we as men, there's often an argument, why do men only think about sex? It's not just that. Men like kind of crave that intimacy, and men don't do that amongst each other, especially not in this culture. Definitely not in this culture. Like I was in the Peace Corps in Zambia, and I remember Zambian culture, African culture is beautiful. And I remember some of the elders in the town would want to hold my hand, and we'd walk down holding hands. You will never see that in America. But if you look, there's an iconic picture. I think it's the president of Nigeria holding hands with George W. Bush, because that's part of the culture, like the intimacy there. And also, I guess homosexuality is so taboo there because it's like illegal, but there no one thinks anything of that. You know what I mean? They just hold hands, like it's sort of like a bonding of friendship. So you made me kind of think about that when you were saying how, like, we as men, we're kind of loners. We can do our own thing, but it's true. Like we don't have that intimacy, and then you have a kid, and it kind of creates this instant intimacy. But also, there's studies done that says that as soon as there's an infant that comes in a man's household, his testosterone drops like completely.
Well, it's almost like it's an intimacy. It's an unrequited intimacy that kicks in immediately. Like even with a wife, you're like, oh, she's really attractive. I'm getting along with them, but it takes some time to generate it, right? Because you got to go through the normal steps of a relationship. With a child, it's kind of like it's both of yours. There's a lot of you in that child. And it's born, and then almost immediately you're just like, oh my God, I am like enveloping this thing without hurting it.
Yeah, no, it's like my wife is always like, don't you just want to eat her daughter? I'm like, yeah, sometimes I guess.
Yeah, Melanie will say, I just want to eat your face. And it's like, that's disgusting, but I totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's completely, but it's unbelievable because I was always somebody who would not go out with women just to go out with them. Uh-huh. Like my time was too important and serious to me to to just do that. I had so much I wanted to do. I had so many sports I wanted to watch. I had so many books I wanted to read. I had so many hours I wanted to go to the gym and play pickup basketball. And I got so used to being spoiled on all the things that were me. And I think that's really good if you're into that kind of thing. But when I was on my own, I could still do that. But like, I feel like I needed 1 hour of interaction with somebody. So that's the time where I'd always be like, hey, dude, do you want to go get some dinner? Do you want to go get a drink? And then I found that once I then get into a relationship with someone, first of all, as a guy who just like doing a lot of things on your own, you could get very overwhelmed by so much presence. And women, I think, are more, they always say in some of these studies they'll do that women are more cooperative, men are more kind of competitive. I think a lot of competition is being on your own a little bit. But the cooperation, women always seem to want to be together, like you said. They always want to be, they're happiest when they're amongst. And I think for me, I was always happiest when I could go back to having my own little niche of alone time. Like even now, when you have a wife, you have a kid, sometimes when we've put the baby to bed and then we're finally up in bed, we'll watch a show and then Melanie will go, all right, I think that's it for me tonight. She'll go to bed. And then it's not that I don't love being with the person, but that moment where I go, oh, it's me. And I turn over and I put whatever I want on my iPad, whatever I'm reading, whatever I want to watch, whatever game, whatever television show, whatever movie. And it's so weird how you come back to that. And it's hard to explain to them that it's not an either or proposition. It's not like I want full alone time versus being with you full time. But it's funny the way they kind of can take it that way. Whereas I see it as more of a diversification of time. I feel it as I need this quotient as much as I need this quotient. Maybe I need the quotient with you a lot more, but it's so important to me to have that time.
Yeah, you need your man cave. This is a great man cave you have down here.
But like reading takes a lot of time. Listening, watching, there's just so much to consume. And maybe for me, that is my cooperative time. That is my reaching out to the world. It's the world coming to me, but it's still, to me, it's always in my head how many things I still have to get through.
Yeah, no, it reminds me, there was this guy I knew, his kids were older, they were teenagers, but he said, and I was telling him about how me and my wife were pregnant before my daughter was born. He's like, well, once you're married, once you're living with someone, your time, you have to manage your time more. You don't have as much free time. And then when the kid comes in, it's like, whoa, you really have to streamline it. And it's like that. And I learned that now, like I have to be a lot more vigilant with my time because it's a finite resource. And, you have competing interests now because it's kind of like, there's times when I have a free day and it's like, all right, let me go to the library and do a job search or fill out this application. I really have to just work on that when I really just want to kind of BS for a couple hours and then do another couple hours where I'm doing the work. Like I need that full time to do it. And what I see with my wife, she's such a good multitasker. Like she's literally like doing stuff on the computer, like with our daughter on her leg. Right. I could never do that.
Well, I almost wouldn't want to. I enjoy the singularity of what I'm doing. And it could be useful whether it's on a task list or not. I enjoy sometimes, I really don't have to be into work till 10, working at a tech company. And then on Mondays and Thursdays, I'll drop my son off at his Montessori school and drop offs at 8:15. And, I'm not going to leave then. I got an hour commute to work. But if you leave at that point, you're going right into traffic. It's going to be even longer. So I'll slide down to my favorite coffee place, Cloveberry, and I walk in. And I'm in there. I got my coffee, and it's 8:20, 8:25. And I'll just sit and, read there for 40 minutes. I'll read, the New Yorker. I'll read an article, or I'll read around on my iPad, just drinking my coffee. And it's crazy the way you want to and can manufacture those times where the world can't touch you. Work's not going to touch me yet because everyone's still getting in. A lot of times the tech world doesn't start till later. My child is taken care of at the school down the street. My wife's at work teaching, and I'm just sitting in the coffee place. And no one's worse for the wear for me being there. I could do whatever I want there.
Yeah, no, you seek these comforting things. You just made me think coffee. So my wife pointed out to me, she's like, your teeth look so yellow. And she's like...
And I love how they point it. We would never point that out to them. And I just wouldn't see it. I wouldn't say oh my gosh,
Well,
if you did, they just would turn on you badly.
I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going there. But her point was, she's like, you drink so much coffee now. I'm like, your sister, she's old and she smokes like a chimney, and she has her frappuccinos. Her teeth aren't yellow like that. She's like, you drink this coffee. I'm like, what? I make my coffee maker. I have my 1 cup of coffee. I usually don't finish half a cup, and usually every day I get Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. I like the cold brew with almond milk, 2 sugar. Get that. It's kind of almost, I guess it is daily. Then my medium one.
Oh, you going to buy it?
I do buy it.
Yeah. The Dunkin' Donuts
Dunkin'
one?
Donuts. Yeah, that's what I'm addicted to.
You've stuck with the cold brew?
Yeah, I have.
And they're still making it in the winter?
Yeah, why not? It's great. I mean, when I came in your house, I finished mine. I was actually kind of shivering because I was finished with it. But it's almost as if when we seek comfort more after you have so much going on. Like, you seek comfort. Like, I asked you, I'm like, hey, can you make me a coffee before we start? Yeah. So this is like my 3rd cup. And it's almost like I'm probably so addicted I don't even realize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's sort of like it's such a comfort thing. It's like I clench to it. It's like, okay, what is familiar to me? What is nice? Because I know you have a coffee maker just like mine.
I have a bunch. Well, the problem for me is, this morning, first of all, our son got up at 6 because he's just got this awful hacking cough, which is just, it's killing me. Kills me every time. The agony. And they're not going to remember this, but when you just see them suffering in that moment and like afraid they can't breathe, you're just like, oh, I can't take this. It just takes your whole day down.
Yeah.
But he was waking up at 6 a.m. And so this is the first day, first day I'm off after the 2 days of working on the break. And in the past, that off day meant something. But now it don't mean anything. If he's screaming and then you hear through the monitor, Daddy, Daddy, and you're like, I can't turn that away. And so you go and get him. You're up now. So I'm up at 6. Didn't get a lot of sleep probably. And it's amazing how we jump into these cycles where we know everything's going to go wrong. So I think probably my wife too hasn't gotten enough sleep. When you don't get enough sleep, you get a little crabby. You have a sick kid, it makes you a little more crabby. And then I went and I said, hey, I'm going to go down to Clubberry and get a cup of coffee because it's like important to me to get out of the house. Actually, on Thanksgiving, I needed to get out of the house. Not I needed to. I wanted to go to the gym first thing in the morning and then get back because I know I'm not going to be out of the house the rest of the day. And it's like a nice feeling to get up, work out, the food goes down a little easier. And she kept saying, why do you want to be out of the house on Thanksgiving? And I go, no, it's not I want to be out of the house. It's not I don't want to be here with my family. It's I just want to go do that thing. And it was this weird thing sometimes where the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. And you're like, I don't understand how this is happening. And it caused such an issue. And then by the end of the day, it happened and it wasn't a big deal. And so you can't then go back and re-legislate and go, or relitigate, whichever it is, and be like, look, nothing went from it. It's like, are you bringing that up again? And you're like, no, I won't do it. But she can call your teeth yellow, but I'm not calling her out.
No, it's okay. You just remind me of something, though. It's like, and I'm so used to it by now. But the thing is, I'm like you in that sense. Like before, like when we're single and stuff, you really don't have to answer to anybody. And I'm not saying I necessarily have to answer to my wife, but it's like, I have to explain stuff I never had to explain before, And
all of a sudden it's weird, the thing you did all the time.
It's sort of like I remember living, because I did a lot of things, bounced around a lot in my 20s. So I moved back home into my dad's house when I'm 30. And I tell my dad, oh, I'm going out. I'll be back later. He's like, what are you doing? I'm just going out. Leave me alone. Oh, okay. That does not fly now. She's like, where are you going? It's like I can't just be like, I'm just going out.
And then it turns into something that you need to do because you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, it has to be something you need to do. It can't just be aimless. Yeah.
No, and it's like, but I mean, now you almost need to do it because you're like, what do you mean, where am I going?
and because of battle of wills.
And then you sit there and go, whoa, is that really a thing? But so this morning I said to myself, I'm going to go. And then just things were going on and he just wasn't right. And it really, you almost can't convey how much when your kid is sick that it just pulls you down and it makes you like feel like the gate is down and the barbarians are coming in. It's like the most awful feeling. And so it started snowing and then I'm like, I got the anxiety of all this stuff going on. Wake up at 6, sick kid. I'm now going to be home with it. Like in some regards, it would almost be one of those deals where it would be better if I had a work day because I'm just going to sit here being the receptacle of all this anxiety going around and having to be on top of it. And then it's snowing and I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. So then I go and I have this grinder this coffee grinder that can, grind up the beans and then it can put it into a Keurig cup or it can just go into a normal grinder. And so I had these leftover beans from my brother who lives up in Rhinebeck, New York, and he brought from some local coffee place that I've been kind of moving through these beans, because you got to move through them, otherwise they go bad. And so I grind them up, and it's like, you know, I'm taking forever with my whole thing because I've decided I'm going to do a French press this morning. I'm off. I'm going to do a French press. There's a sick kid. He's trying to eat. My wife's trying to get things together in the kitchen, and I'm like futzing around with getting the right measurements of the coffee. But so it ends up I have 24 ounces of coffee. So you throw that on the fire, and now I'm walking around the house like like a raccoon who got in during the day, and you're just like, what's going on here? Everything is like visceral. Anytime like something is said, I'm like turning it around and be like, what did you just say to me?
What, you get that paranoid?
I can. If I have too much on top of the not sleeping, on top of the just not feeling like there's stability today with the sickness, and I still haven't felt that good about that. And I never had that before. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. I would never know this anxiety if I hadn't gone into this, and I wouldn't have been any worse for the, you know, that's the hard thing, is the counterfactual. You know, you could go, oh man, of all days, I wish I were just single. And I don't wish that, but I'm just saying it for argument's sake. But if I was just single, I would be lonely.
Yeah, no.
There's no perfect balance. That's the deal.
I try to think of, well, I guess it's more pertinent to my dad with his firstborn. My sister just turned 40, December 20th. Happy birthday, Jess. And my dad's 74. So at what age? Yes, it was at 70 when my dad turned 70 and my sister was 35. At that point, my sister was in my dad's life for half his life. Like, I have to wait until I'm 35 now, until I'm 39, and he's 78, and then I'll have been in his life half his life. Like, you look at it, our kids have only been in our lives a fraction of our lives. Yeah. I always feel like that's like a watershed moment. Reminds me, actually, when I turned 21, my dad was turning 60, we went to Vegas. It was pretty cool at Disney World. But when you say that, you know what I mean? It's true, because you're so used to living a certain way, and your life just radically changes. Changes for the better, though.
No, it does.
Yeah. This is, you know, who was saying it? Nuno was saying how you have such wide range, and it's true. You do.
Nuno Damasio.
Yes, Nuno Damasio.
The Parcells book.
The Parcells book. How essentially the one who, I guess in a sense, he didn't quite introduce me to you, but he told me he was on a podcast, and I looked him up, and I found you, and I'm like, Matthew, what's up? Became friends. You invited me on, and I wanted to mention this, and I remember we were talking on Facebook Messenger, because it seems like we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking a lot about domestic things, which is pretty cool. It's a totally different tenure than our last episode. But I remember you told me you wanted me back on. I'm like, okay, cool. But then you said something to me that struck me the other week. And you're like, you know, sports doesn't have the same relevance or the same importance to me ever since this election, because I'm still a little bit affected by the Trump election. And then I'm like, you know what? You got to have me back on your podcast. We need to continue this. And you're like, yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, after the new year. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Is my life really, I have a kid. My life's busy because I'm a family man. But is my life really that busy where I got to wait till the new year? I'm like, wait, I got this free week now. Let's arrange a day now, Christmas week.
How do you pull that off, though? How do you, is it pretty easy if you have enough advance notice to just kind of go out? This is pretty far from you.
You know, because I started this new, you're like, how do you pull it off? I'm like, wait, I'm off this week. I told you, but you're like, no, I have to talk to the real boss, my wife.
Logistically.
Yeah. So how do I pull it off? So you know, everything happened so fast when I started that job, and I was so excited about that because I had a long layover. I was working for the American Cancer Society before, and then I volunteered on an election, and I was thinking, oh, vicariously, I'm helping this Democrat get elected. Vicariously, it's going to help Hillary. Obviously, that didn't work that way. But so then I had some lag time, and I'm like, so it's like once you start working, it's better.
Oh yeah, no, it just makes everything. It's like having your coffee every morning.
Yeah. Did you hear the podcast interview? Sebastian Younger be interviewed by Tim Ferriss?
No,
that was a very good one. It was excellent because Sebastian Younger, he wrote this new book called Tribe, where he's talking about how we really we don't do a good job as Americans healing our soldiers coming back from war. But he talked about it, and he mentioned this as something in the book, that when soldiers are sitting idly by, they suffer the most depression, they suffer the most anxiety because they don't know what to do. If they're anticipating something, you know, they don't know what to anticipate or expect. And it's like that when you don't have a job. You know what I mean? You're just like paralyzed. So it started working. It was exciting. Yes, I have this through the end of the school year. I can parlay this into, you know, going into teaching for my next career venture, my last career, on top of everything else I like to do as well. So it's cool. So it started like was an agreement. It's like, okay, cool. So I started this job. worked 4 days, and then I have this week off. So I told my wife right off the bat, okay, so pretty much all the time is going to be with you guys, but I'm going to take this one day out to go visit Matthew to be back on the podcast for part 2. She's like, okay. So I kind of like laid it out. I let her know in advance, like what my plan is, what I'm going to do. And it's sort of like, it's almost like, I guess Bill Simmons coined this phrase, is like the salary cap space. Like, how much salary cap space do you have? It's like, okay, so I'm using my salary cap on you, Matthew.
Yeah, I always say, how much bandwidth or how much capital do I want to use on this?
Yeah.
And it always becomes, what ends up happening is I don't end up doing anything, because I'm like I end up being a conservative with my personal bandwidth. I go, oh, I'm not going to use it on this. I'll use it on that. Or we were talking about Christmas gifts, and she kept saying, well, is there anything you want? And I never really know the answer to that question, because if there's something I want, I usually just go and get it, because usually it's something that is very much wanted in society at the time. Like the Apple AirPods, I just got them. I will be doing a podcast about that. I just got them, and they got released right before Christmas, but there was a six week back order on them. Apple's had a little bit of trouble with this product, getting it to market in time. But they said there will be limited supplies available on Monday, the week of Christmas. And so I'm driving into work, and there's an Apple store at the Rockaway Mall, and if it were normal times, the Apple store opens at 10, and I couldn't get in there. But I just happened to look on Google, and I said Apple Store Rockaway, and it has the hours there, and it said 8 a.m. I went, that's not right. Because sometimes Google's like something weird happens, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And I look it up, and they had special holiday hours. Good job by Google being on top of that. And so I was able to just roll in on my way to work. I walk in, and the place is empty, because it's Rockaway Mall. You know, on a normal day, it's open at 10 at that Apple store. This day, I'm in there at 9:20.
What day was this?
Monday, Christmas week. So I walk in there, and it's empty, making me think, oh, the rush must have come and just cleared out with these AirPods. And I walk up to the guy, I'm like, you got any AirPods? He goes, yeah, you're the first to ask. There were people waiting online in New York City, like overnight, to get these things. I walk in, and he goes, you just want one? And I made the biggest mistake. I said, yes. I should have bought them out of what they had. It would be, I think they might have had 10 or 12. I should have just bought them out. I mean, they're $160, which is a little steep, but they've been great. I'll again talk about that. But I could have sold them for $200. You make $40 on each one. It's pretty good. People want them Christmas week. It's a perfect gift. But I don't know where I was going with that.
The AirPods. That's okay. I mean, you should have showed it to me. I think I saw a status of you having it and stuff. I know you're a big Apple guy. My wife's iPhone has been giving her a lot of trouble. We were driving down to Maryland to visit her sister Thanksgiving week, and I'm like, here, you got to charge your iPhone, because I have 2 chargers, one for my iPod and one just extra one charging her iPhone. And then it charged too much, and it updated. And she's like, I didn't want it to update. I was the last person I know to have my iPhone updated. She's like, I like it when it's at 20%. I'm like, I didn't know this. Why didn't you tell me this? You know what I mean? Of course. It's like, it's like.
I remember.
Yeah.
So it was the gift. For me, I had to make a counter strike to get in to get my gift at the time I wanted it. Mm-hmm. If I had said, this is the perfect gift for me, you can go get it, my wife might have ordered it, and I would have been waiting 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Instead, I make the strike, I get them. But she was saying to me, is there anything you really want? And I'm like really looking for things. I see Jim Brewer, you know, the comedian?
Yeah.
Jim Brewer. He's going to be performing at the Newton Theater, which is like 10 minutes from our house. It's like totally a cool place to go see comedy shows, because it's just so easy. It's like you don't have to drive to the city. You drive right there. When you're done, you're home in 10 minutes. It's fantastic. He's performing there January 13th. So I said to her, well, maybe we can go to that. And then all of a sudden, I just don't pay attention to schedules. I don't know. It's like, well, I have this, we have this that night before. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I don't need anything. And then it becomes like, well, no, we can go if you really want to go. I'm like, I don't want to go that much. I don't want to use that much. I don't want to use that much bandwidth and capital on that, especially when it's a gift for me. It's going to be a bad situation. I'm okay. I've seen them before, but it's funny. Like, I just don't need anything like that. And so you try to figure your way through it ends up being a little of a minefield.
You close the loop on that, though. You figure it out while you're talking about that.
Yeah.
Well, you should have bought out of the store. It's really weird. It's like kind of how economics work. It's like at one place there's such a demand for something and other places not. If you wait
hilarious.
Well, why don't you just go back there, see if they still have some more?
No, they did end up clearing
Well, see,
out.
there you should have let your wife order for you, because then at least you'd have a second pair on its way.
Yeah, but it would have been 6 weeks, and then there wouldn't have been a scarcity to it, and no one would have needed them, because everyone would start getting them at that point. I had the perfect point in time. I would have cleared them out. I probably could have doubled it. I would not want to be usurious though. I'd say 200 because they're a perfect gift for people because most people have iPhones, so they'll just sync so well with those.
So how do these headphones work? Are they
They're
cordless?
Bluetooth. Yeah, they're cordless. They're Bluetooth, but they're a special technology that Apple has called like a W2 chip or something. So Bluetooth headphones sound terrible.
Would they work on my little mini iPod here?
Does it do Bluetooth? I don't know. I don't know if they work with Bluetooth. The Mini.
I think it does do Bluetooth.
I'm not sure with that, but they're fantastic. They're earbuds, but they're not wired. They're just the earbud part. People make fun of them. They call them like a little hair dryer.
Yeah, there is Bluetooth on here.
Oh, okay. They might work. Not 100% sure, but they might work.
It's kind of expensive.
They're fantastic, but they're fantastic.
Yeah, no, because whenever
the sound is great, and you're free. You're working.
Yeah,
like, you're just free.
No, I know. Yeah, totally. That makes perfect sense because I have like the iPod docket. I feel like I'm always moving from one room to the next to be free, or when I'm on a walk with my daughter or something, kind of like getting her out of the stroller and she wants to be picked up and stuff, and it's like the headphones are dangling on her leg. Right. They get all twisted up and everything.
Oh, yeah, there's always so much maneuvering. The more you get, I mean, I got two iPads, I got a Kindle, I got an iPhone, I have the EarPod. Like I have so many things that need to be charged that you have to account for. But I've been kind of going back and forth on, are we really that different off? Because people are going, oh my God, you have to charge your AirPods, you have to charge your Apple Pencil, you have to charge your, And I was thinking to myself, well, in the past, when you would go somewhere, you would bring like magazines, books, newspapers. You're pretty full. We used to have like backpacks at school. I mean, I don't know what kids have now.
I still have.
But you still have one.
My wife just got me. This is a great backpack. Yeah. This has such compartments. It's great. See, this is where you need the TV in place.
Yeah, right.
It's going to show us and stuff.
Well, I actually got a Puma backpack actually for the Nunio episode. I got all my stuff together.
Oh, cool.
But you're a little atypical. But we went from remember like our backs were breaking from the books we'd have to carry to school. I don't even know if kids carry books as much anymore, if they're tablets or not, with a lot of that stuff. But where things get easier, we automatically forget the past. We're like, oh, we're gonna have to add this to the mix and that to the mix, and it's like, well, in the past, those 7 magazines you have on that one iPad, that's like the skinniness of a pencil, used to be like what I'm filling up my entire bookcase with. If I'm bringing books, I'm bringing magazines. I mean, you could forget things there. There was a million things you were carrying around. It's all perspective.
I still like the old school books though.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
I do. That's me.
I like the Kindle, and I get used to it because it's so light, and it's just I used to love the fact that I'd be reading, and I haven't gotten books as much lately because I just have so many magazines I'm reading, and I find that I got a little bit of ADD where if I'm reading a long form magazine article, to me, that gives me the positive aspects of what I would get from a book, but I'm out in like an hour. Whereas a book, it's so long that it really better be worth it.
No, well, the thing is, so I got you, I'm going to plug myself for this. I got you the Tim Ferriss new book, Tools of Titans. Yeah. And that's actually been a very popular Christmas gift I'm giving people because it's kind of like a pick your own adventure. Because you really read the intro by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's Arnold, come on. And then just read, so that's like, that's his intro to him. And then it says, read this first, where Tim Ferriss tells you how to read it. So read that because he tells you how to select things. And he separates it into 3 different groups: health, wealth, and wisdom. And these are essentially his podcast episodes distilled for people he interviewed. So you could just pick whoever you're interested in, who you want to read about and stuff.
Well, you know what the best gifts are, and that's what they call these kind of books: toilet or bathroom books. Yeah, they're the type of book that can sit on the back of the toilet, and when someone takes a little rest in there, you can just pick and choose. I'm not downing.
No. I'll tell you what my favorite bathroom book is actually Bill Simmons' The Book of Basketball.
Really?
Yeah, I read it once all the way through the hardcover, and then I got the paperback because I was looking for his updated versions on LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. He needs to come out with a new one because some of the people, since that book came out, Dirk Nowitzki won the title. LeBron has transformed his career and he was great before that. Yeah. Kevin Durant is in there. Steph Curry isn't in there, but that is it because you could just I feel like I'm rereading some of the same profiles over and over again.
Yeah. Sometimes rereading's important. It's shocking when you do happen to come back over something, all the things you missed. Like I find that with The Economist, where I listen to it most of the time just the way it fits into my life and how much commuting time I have, I can get through it on 1.5 times speed when I listen to it. And that's important to me to finish it each week. But when I read it, like today I had to shovel because we had some snow here. And so I was listening to a really good, so you got it already, right? You subscribed. Did you get the Christmas edition?
You know, it's funny. I subscribed to The Economist, so I got that for myself as a Christmas gift. I probably should have told someone to get it for me, or a Hanukkah gift. I actually celebrate both, but whatever. It doesn't come. I don't get it till like the end of January. It's like you order it.
Yeah, that's the hard part with the hard. So,
but it's
they have as if the Economist is so long and so big that it takes you probably 6 hours to get through. 6 to 7 hours of reading it. That's why the listening to it helps as well. Many times over the years, I reach my fill and I just cancel it because I can't even look at it anymore because it beats me. It owns me.
Well, I just select what I want to listen, want to read. You know, I like to read the
you say that, but for me, when I buy something, I want to finish it. Like if I'm paying for it myself, even though this one I'm not, I'm taking it from my dad's subscription, so I get the digital. But anyway, so I was listening to a really good article, as long as an Economist article gets, where when I was listening to it, it was 40 minutes long, the article. Most articles are like 5-6 minutes. The really long ones are like 22 minutes, the briefings. 40 minutes. That's how deep they went into Obama's kind of time as a president. And so I was listening, and since it was so long, I listened to a part of it. This morning I was reading some, and then when I went out to shovel, I was listening again because I was shoveling. And so I ended up going back over what I had already read because it's impossible to find where you are in audio, you know? And there were like a million things I missed, and I was reading it. Like, how does that work?
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you do that? Like, I know you talked about in other episodes too, that you'll read part of a book and then you'll listen to an audio and go back to reading. How do you, like, that sounds complicated.
Well, it just picks it. No, well, the good thing with Amazon is it owns both companies. It owns Audible and it owns the Kindle book, right? Or the Kindle is where you buy, the Kindle is Amazon's device that you read the book you bought from Amazon through. So they have this thing called Whisper Sync that automatically does that for you. So the Economist doesn't know I was reading and listening.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So the Whisper Sync is, it's great. For some long books, that's really good.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, well, you take things in different ways. Like whenever I'm listening to something audio, I feel like I always need to be doing something. Except for when we were done with our episode, I literally just sat at my computer and didn't even do anything and just listened to our interview.
Really? Was that like agonizing for you?
No, it was really fascinating. And I listened to it a second time with my wife again too, and that was fun.
Wow, this amazes me about you that you ask for so much feedback. Mm-hmm. I'm like it's great. It's almost like self-help great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just can't do it. I like to send my thing to the world and flush.
You know what? The third time I listened to it to my mother-in-law, and then I'm like, I had to turn it off. After the second time, the third time, I'm like, I can't do this again. But I just wanted to listen the first time with a really critical eye. And what I picked up on was really fascinating. But you have a great podcast. Got to give you that. I told you that before. I'm telling you now. I'm telling it to the world, to all your listeners. But really listening that first time, comparing me to you. I'm not really comparing me to you, but I'm just hearing myself to you. And I'm like, wow, Matthew is so polished, so media trained. You see that he got all the reps in. Like Bill Simmons always talking about getting the reps. Like a quarterback needs the reps before he gets really good. And I'm just seeing it. I'm like, you listen to Critical Eye, you can see the contrast. You can tell that I haven't really been on this kind of medium. But Matthew, wow, you really have gained a level of mastery in this, and I really applaud you.
And I don't even think, every time I do one, I'm like horrified. Every time I go to do one, I go, what am I going to talk about today? What kind of time do I have when the baby's not sick where I can actually get it in? Because I realized at everyone, I'm like, okay, it's Saturday, 2 p.m. And I'm like, oh, it's because the baby's napping. And I like to be researched. I like to be picking different things up. And then at some point, you just press go. You just press record. And you just kind of fall in. You jump out of the plane and you go and you allow your own mind to have a conversation with itself. The only things I have trouble with are if I'm coming up to a word, if the word's at the end of the sentence and I'm coming to it and I go, oh my God, it's this SAT word I want to say. It's this word. And then I either just get it in time or I fall for, I go to like the simplified word.
Yeah, you know what happens though.
That's the only thing I do, but it, you know what it is? It's, I said it in the last one, I think, or a few ago. It is literally like running. When you go to do a jog, you've committed to doing it. You put your music, you put whatever you need to psych yourself up. A lot of times for a podcast, it's coming down with a coffee or a latte. And you resign yourself to doing this. And then you start, and every step is like, oh, this is awful. This stinks. I hate myself. This is so terrible. And then a mile in, you're like, let's go 20.
Yeah, no, there's so many directions I want to go with this, but you don't want to sound too smart. The truth is, I mean, we talked about this at length, so I don't want to go into too great a detail, but part of the reason why Trump won over Hillary is because Trump dumbed it down for people. He spoke at a 4th grade level, and people like that. I can understand what the heck he's saying.
Well, and he played for the adoration.
Look, that's a big word right there. What does that mean?
Adoring, like the adoration.
Yeah. But the thing is,
or adulation.
Maybe that's it. I was thinking of this word. It's like what is the opposite of introspective? Because it's almost as if I feel
gregarious.
No, because introspective is like when you're really reviewing yourself, like you're really taking a deep look inside yourself. Right. Gregarious is just being really outgoing and friendly. Yeah. So, but Trump, the 4th grade level, and I had a friend sum it up. She's like, granted, he's lying and stuff, but he's trying to keep it real. Like, he's trying to say stuff that makes sense.
Yeah, he's acting.
Hillary just sounds like a liar, and I'm just like, oh my God, if this person, this business-minded woman is thinking this and stuff, this is trouble. Like, people didn't pay attention to the warning signs. I mean, it's been regurgitated over and over what happened, what could have happened, the whole autopsy, and just who's blaming who and whatnot. But what I want to talk to you about when we're talking about like your podcast style and you want to go into it, I want to talk about like the different kind of podcasts, because the first episode we're talking about, we never really got into it.
Yeah,
like different kind of podcasts, consuming podcasts, because that's what you're asking me. You're like a podcast connoisseur or expert. I'm like, no, not really. I just like listening to podcasts, and we have similar interests in the podcasts we like, but then I think we diverge in some parts. There's certain podcasts you like a lot, like you love the storytelling ones, and you really are quite a storyteller. I don't think you realize that, but when you're telling me a story about how you're like, yeah, I'm in my house and I'm a raccoon because I had so much coffee. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a natural storyteller. He doesn't even realize it.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I think for me, the reason that podcasting might work out is because, and this is probably for you too, like you jumped right in. You're not giving yourself enough credit. This feels like some kind of AA meeting or something. But PA, Podcast Anonymous. But when you listen to actual podcasts a lot, I'm not talking like Morning Joe's podcast where it's just a synthesis of what they talked about on the show. I'm talking about a native podcast, people who are doing a podcast that is going to go into a podcatcher and be downloaded and listened to. Not radio, not anything like that. When you're doing a podcast, and I even to a degree believe Howard Stern actually does a podcast in a way, the way they do it, the way they talk about it, they interview. You just get it. Your reps are listening to them and understanding what you like about them and hearing the way people talk into the microphone and hearing the way they have faith in what they're going to say and that they don't have to say a talking point. And it just comes out so easily. Every time when people would do these, they would go, that was great. How long was that? And you would always say it and they go, oh my God, that was this long. It's like, yeah, have faith in the fact that your 30, 35, 40 years of lived life have something in there. This isn't me asking like someone to come in and be like, hey, I got my amp over here. Let's jam. Can you pick up the bass? Like that's like, you need to have some kind of expertise. You need to have some level of musicianship to understand even how to do that. You need to have practiced. In what other world do you do something where you practice every day? You practice every day for a podcast without even realizing it. When you're trying to teach kids, when you're trying to manage clients, when you're trying to manage projects, when you're trying to talk to your wife, when you're trying to talk to your child, when you're trying to talk to your parents, it's all different audiences. It's all different versions of yourself. You're doing it all the time. So when you get here, you could actually sort of be the true version of yourself. And in an hour, you probably will let out every version of yourself.
Well, I mean, there's a level of mastery to it. I don't think you can't downplay it. Like I know you say you're an introverted guy and maybe you're not always sociable, but you are a master conversationalist. Think of the diversity and range of your podcast interviews, who you've had on here. I mean, I know some people, and I think this is actually a skill set, to get someone on your podcast episode or anybody's podcast episode who isn't particularly social, and you get them talking. You get them talking about something they love. Because some people aren't so quick and easy with the conversation and stuff. And maybe that's partially why you're like, yeah, do a podcast, Josh. Because you're quick and easy with the conversations. But I'm sure you wouldn't recommend it to everybody. But you can always pull out a conversation out of people. And that takes a skill.
It's fun.
Yeah, but not everybody's a natural conversation. So you're right. But some people, it's like a lot of people that are naturally good at conversations or just naturally like conversing and want to talk about anything, they can do it. So I wouldn't say it's for everybody, but it's for a lot of people.
But everybody is practiced to do it just by living.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
I actually, when I started doing this, which is, God, 3.5 years now. It's unbelievable. When I started doing this, I would actually, as practice, talk in my normal conversations as if I were being recorded. So I wouldn't speak lazily. I would speak clearly. I would speak concisely. I would speak without saying or ah. Like, it was practice, but I was having conversations. So I would, if I were talking to my wife, it wouldn't just be mumbling or blah, blah, blah. I would talk extremely clearly, and I would try to look for the right words to say as practice. And I would do that as well when I was managing projects at work. I would do, which ends up actually being a positive because now you're coming across as even more professional. But this has taught that you do have a well to pull from. And I'm often fascinated doing these where they lead and just where the connections happen that are deep down within these 34, 35 years of lived life. Or even if I do one with like my dad or I do one with my mom, there's things that come out that you just never even, I would never sit with my dad at a table and talk to him. Like, you might sit on a couch watching sports, talking. You might be at dinner drinking wine, which is opening things up, having good dinner, on the road, like on vacation. But you never just sit and talk. And through these, it is like a filter that allows you to talk, even though you're sitting in the same room. The fact that you're talking each other for an audience actually makes you talk with a level of clarity that you never get in actual real life.
You're right. I almost feel like putting on these headphones, like when I'm hearing myself before you went live on this, just talking into the mic, it transports me to some other kind of plane.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This isn't a podcast per se, but like I download Colin Cowherd's podcast. I like listen to his podcast episode. I don't listen to him every day. And this week when he's off, I'm just deleting each one that because he has the replacement guys. But he had Joe Buck on. I thought that was a really interesting interview, 10-15 minute interview. And Joe Buck was saying how, because Colin asked him an interesting question. He's like, when you're doing these live, sporting events, how do you like separate Joe Buck, the person, the diehard growing up Cardinals fan, from being the Joe Buck, the sportscaster? He's like, well, when I put on these headphones and stuff, I know I'm a professional. So I'm not going to be sitting on my couch cursing, whatever, what have you. He's like, I just go into like this different kind of mode level and I just know how to turn it on and off. And Joe Buck, in a way, he's kind of, I feel like he did Game 7 of the World Series, Cubs versus Indians. I feel like that put him in a new level just doing that game itself. I know he's done a lot of amazing games, but I feel like that's going to be his legacy. Like, that's going to be one of the first memories of him, that he did Game 7 of like the most.
He'll be on every highlight.
Yeah, the most memorable World Series of our lifetime.
And I thought, I've never noticed this before, but I thought his post cap was just absolutely amazing. After they won, and then I think I talked about this in a podcast, but that's another annoying thing I hate actually when people say, just say it, right? Don't worry about if you talked about it. Like Joe Rogan does it all the time. He'll go, I've talked about this in a previous, it's like, who cares? Just talk about it. So I'm just going to talk about it. So he, after they won, there was like a nice music playing underneath it. And then he just talked extemporaneously. He just went. and he went from thing to thing, and I'm sure it was planned, and I'm sure he had his beats and his talking points, but I'm not 100% sure either. Did they just let him go? How much did they let him go? Was he going 80%? Was he going 20% off the cuff? But it was phenomenal, almost the way it was like a song, where he was hitting the right thing based on the picture they would show or the video or the scene, and then with the music playing underneath, and it felt like it went for a long time. I never noticed that happen at the end of a World Series before. So he was kind of breaking down how everything happened. It was almost the shining moment for college sports, for the basketball tournament. But yeah, he's very impressive. And the fact that people can be like, oh, I don't like him, it's like, yeah, okay, that means he's doing a good job. It means he's actually being down the line. People don't want to hear that the thing they love is not as good as they think it is. Maybe that's why I don't seek feedback, and you do.
I didn't fully follow. What are we saying about the college basketball?
The shining moment, right? At the end of the college basketball tournament, the NCAA tournament. It's like a really nicely put together piece that has all the major videos with the song, The Shining Moment. So that's completely produced, though. This Joe Buck thing after the World Series, he was just going. He was just speaking, and I was really impressed by it.
He was I think now I'm questioning myself whether it was on Colin Cowherd. I think it was, but he was also talking about how he knew that he was going to do 1998 season. Mark McGwire 60-second home run ball, and he said he had it scripted at first, and then he threw it out because Mark McGwire because you couldn't tell if it was going to be fair or foul, and he realized he couldn't do it. It had to be off the cuff. And then also because like if he missed it, if he missed it somehow, he's like he had to be live because he thought it was so important, and he realized he had to just chuck it. And also he's like, make sure you hit first base, Mark, because he almost skipped it over, and it was just kind of funny. He was just saying, he's like, I realize you can't be scripted. You just have to be.
No, you have to go, and that's scary. That's both the easy part and the scary part about doing things this way. If it's unscripted, it means you don't have to put all of the work into the pre-production of it.
Yeah, no. Well, it's the preparation prior to it. It's like, what was it? Bill Belichick said after they won week 1 of the football season this year, Tom Brady had that ridiculous 4-game suspension against the Cardinals, when everyone thought the Cardinals were still good since they finished in the top 4 last year. And Bill Belichick was like, they won a game. It was a close game. He's like, we didn't win it on the field here. We won it in the preparation the week before, all through the summer and everything. So the truth is that you're more prepared for this moment than you even realize. Even though you're off the cuff, it's all the reps you had before that got you prepared. Tell me about that process that you do with that. Like you're saying how you write down notes in Evernote so you can link things together in your week so you have material for your podcast.
Yeah, so every day I was doing this. I actually heard this idea from a podcast called The Gist. Mm-hmm. So it's this guy who's on, I think it's on Slate. He was brought over. He's like he was kind of a famous podcaster from something else. Let me see if I can just get his name here.
The Gist podcast. I'm writing that down so I can look it up.
Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't love it, but there was a period of time where I was listening to it, and this is the thing. Even if you don't love something, you take something from everything. Yeah. Mike Pesca is his name, and he does like 20-minute, 25-minute daily podcasts. They're like interview, they're whatever, and that's a good way to actually get in a podcast every day. And 20, 25 minutes is probably a pretty good amount of time. Mm-hmm. So he had this guy on, and I can't recall his name, but the guy said what he does is at the end of every single day, he writes down everything that happened in that day that was memorable. If he were going to write a story about that day he lived, he writes it down every single day at the end of the day. And then by the end of the month, he looks at all the information he has, and he's shocked at how much is there. So the thought you have driving up here today, you might go, oh, that's such a derivative thought. That's not even that amazing of a thought. It makes no within the context of you thinking about it, it just doesn't feel that special. But if you write it down, because you spent the time to think about it, it was important, whatever that is. If you write it down, in 2 weeks, you might forget the context around what made it feel derivative, and all of a sudden, it raises up as something that's like this amazing thought. And then you might remember something, or you might write something down in 2 weeks that ties that thread together, that pulling that piece and tying it together here, make it an amazing thought that jumps up. So he said he does this every day, and I think he does it on actual pen and paper. So what I did was I took Evernote and I called it my daily story notebook. and I would just write at the end of every day everything that happened that day, it's phenomenal. Because you ever go like, shoot, what did I do last Thursday? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like life just piles on top of each other, and then each day is like a ring on a tree. It doesn't even, you lose track of it. Except when there's a storm, and then you can see like the weird jagged thing in the ring on the tree. But so you write it every day, and in that day it didn't feel that special. But in 2 weeks, it's like, whoa. Either because you lost, it evaporated around the moment, or something else tied together. So every day I would write about what happened that day, what article I read, what 10 articles I read, what little thing I thought of that felt like an important. The thought could literally be, boy, Donald Trump reminds me a lot of Ron Artest. If he's on the right team, he can win you a championship, as he did with that Lakers team when Kobe had that terrible Game 7 and he won. If he's your leader, he's going to go into the crowd and beat them up. And so I wrote that down. I've never used it, but I wrote it down. I used it just now, but I wrote it down, and it was like, it could be the silliest damn thing, but I thought it, and it was a weird tie-in together. And I had better Donald Trump thoughts. It's almost like a stand-up comedian, what they do. I had better Donald Trump thoughts preceding that one, but I write down everything I think of. So I can be, the reason I use Evernote is because you always have it. It's on your phone, it's on your tablet, it's on your computer. And instead of it being a daily thing, because that started to add up, and then some days I'd be like one sentence, and I didn't want a whole notebook for that. So I moved it to monthly, and I still put it in the daily story notebook, but I'll call it like December 2016. And it's just a line by line. Some could be a paragraph, some could be a sentence, some could be 4 words, a line by line of all the things I'm thinking of. And when you see it in the one notebook, it's much easier to tie back to the different things. And then when I cover something, I cross it out. And so a lot of times those end up being my podcast notes. As we were talking about, when you have a kid, when you're married, you don't have time to prepare, but life is preparing.
Yeah.
I'm reading on the treadmill. I get a thought at the gym. I get a thought driving to the gym. I hear a podcast. I hear something really interesting. I was listening the other day to Adrian Wojnarowski interviewing Mike D'Antoni from the summer before he was going to start with the Rockets, and that was kind of heady to listen to it now, because you saw the success they've actually had up to this point, and at that point you weren't assured they were going to have it. But there was something he said in there which I thought was really fantastic, and I don't know if I could use it, so I'll use it now. But he was saying that the relationship between the head coach and the great player on the team, which he was forging at that point with James Harden, it's a rope, and sometimes the head coach will tug the rope to bring the player back towards him. And then sometimes the player will tug and bring the coach back towards him. It's a give and take. It's a seesaw. And so he said the biggest key is just don't let go of the rope. And he was sort of inferring that that's what happened in New York with Carmelo Anthony.
He let go of the rope?
The rope was let go of. It doesn't matter who it is, right? So as long as the rope is let go of, it's over.
What happened in LA then?
A lot of injuries. So
yeah,
even if I always think it's interesting with D'Antoni, he's a one note guy. If he can have the great offensive guard, basically, who can run the team, and then you spread the court with shooters and kind of hybrid players, you're going to be really good. He did revolutionize really this modern NBA in many ways.
Did you read 7 Seconds Left by Jack? That was a great
book.
That was great.
That was a great book.
Jack McCallum's Dream Team was also really good. Did you read that?
I didn't read that one.
Did you see the documentary at least though?
No.
You could even just pull it up on YouTube, like
really?
Dream Team. Yeah. I mean, it's on NBA TV. Like they run it, NBA TV. I guess, I feel like
I don't get NBA TV where I live. It's the most annoying thing. I have NBA League Pass, and I can't watch any.
They don't offer it?
No, they don't offer it at my cable.
I always listen to your last podcast. You get some of the cool sports channels. I don't have NBA TV. I just don't want to pay for it though. But you're talking about how you have the Red Zone and stuff. I don't want to get into the Red Zone there. But you gave me a bunch of thoughts. But I love basketball. Like telling you the book of basketball, and you made me think. I'm like, oh my God, was Ron Artest really the best player on that Pacers team? Because they lost in the conference. No, did they?
Well, Jermaine O'Neal was up there, but Ron was like, he was a main.
I know, and that was Reggie's last year.
Yeah.
That was Reggie Miller's last year. But you're right.
When did the fight happen? It was 2005, right?
No, it was November 2004. That's right. Okay, that's right. Okay, so the Pistons were the defending champions. The year before, the Pacers were favored, and they lost to the Pistons.
They won like 60 some odd
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing is, it was the year. I remember the Pacers were favored to beat the Pistons. Like, no one thought the Pistons were going to win it all. They got Rashida Wallace. And I remember the defining series moment. It was game 1 or game 2, and the Pistons stole home court because Reggie Miller needed to dunk the ball. He didn't. And Tyshawn Prince came out of nowhere and blocked the ball. Yeah. And that was the signature play of the series. And that was essentially how the series was won for the Pistons. And then they beat the Lakers. And you made me think about it, like when you're the best player. It's like the alpha male. The alpha male in the NBA, more than any other sport, wins the championship. Right. So you think of it, and people were saying, and here I'm going to draw a comparison between Trump beating Clinton and the Lakers losing to the Pistons in 2004. Because everyone thought the Lakers would win. The Lakers had Shaq. He was still great. They had Kobe. It essentially became Kobe's team that year. They had Karl Malone, who got injured in the finals. That was a factor. I don't think they would have won anyway, though. Maybe it would have gone longer. They had Gary Payton, who got relegated because they went back with Derek Fisher. But what happened was there was a battle for the alpha male on that team because they couldn't resolve it between Shaq and Kobe. And no one remembers this because everyone says that the Pistons were like, it's like, 5 equal parts. No, that was Chauncey's team. Chauncey was the alpha male, and they deferred to him. And people say it. He had this respect. He commanded this respect. And you're right. It's like if your best player is Ron Artest, and he very well could have been, that's a lot of trouble.
And talk about a tug of rope with him and Larry Brown. Larry's tough. And he was the perfect receptacle for Larry because he had been beaten around from being a great player and then just getting traded around. He couldn't find the right place, sort of like Kyle Lowry now with Toronto. Couldn't find the right place, and then ultimately you get there, and when you get the right pieces around it, the right coaching, the right rope tug, all of a sudden what gets unleashed is something you never would have seen until you got to this moment, which is one of the best big shot makers I've ever seen. I mean, I was very intimately, as we talked about intimacy, I was very intimately connected with Chauncey Billups as a Nets fan in all those years because the Nets gave the Pistons as much a run in that season they won the championship as anybody. That was the one where the Nets were up 3-2, and they had that triple overtime game where Brian Scalabrine scored like 20 some odd points and he was brought in from the fourth quarter because someone got hurt, and then he just caught fire. He's like scoring everything, and that was the season Jason Kidd went into getting microfracture surgery. He played on one leg.
Wow.
When I worked at the Nets, I asked the trainer about it, and he said it was like Jason Kidd's knee. At that series, he had one leg. And then actually what happened was they won that triple overtime game to go up 3-2 in that series. And then they lost by like 4 points in game 6 at home, and that was it. They needed to win that home game to close it out because otherwise they went back to the Palace and they lost by like 30. They were completely blown out.
Was Vince Carter on the team then?
No. It was Kenyon. It was still Kenyon Martin. It was coached by Lawrence Frank. And in fact, when I heard Brian Scalabrine interviewed on either vertical...
This was that's right, because they made it the finals 2 years in a row up until that point.
They did. They lost, and people forget, they lost in 7 games to the Spurs the next year. They were in
Wasn't it 6?
I'm sorry, both teams. I thought you were talking the Pistons. The Pistons went 2 straight years.
Oh, yeah.
As did the Nets. So those were the main combatants, and the Nets actually swept the Pistons the year before in the conference finals to get to the finals when they played the Spurs. They won 10 games in a row in that playoff. They were tied 2-2 with the Bucks. Gary Payton was on that Bucks team. Mm-hmm. They were tied 2-2 in that series. And from that point forward, they won 10 straight games to get to the finals. And they were in that finals against the Spurs. They were in it much closer than many people think.
This was the beginning of the next phase of the dark ages for the Knicks. So I don't think
you get out of basketball, you lose track of all the amazing things that happen because when your team is gone, you just don't have the same connection with the game.
No, it's because they're the Nets and they're the crosstown rival of the Knicks.
And they destroyed the Knicks.
I resented their success.
Jason Kidd had so much fun owning the Knicks. And then isn't it funny, the one year he's on the Knicks, they win 54 games or whatever.
He should have been the coach of the next year. I mean, the Knicks... Jason Kidd was such a culture changer. He made that Knicks team when he was 40 years old hum like a Knicks team. That's why you're following the Bucks so closely this year, huh? Because you're a Kidd fan.
No, I was so mad because Kidd left us. He coached the team for 1 year in Brooklyn, and then he was out. Now, that's one of those situations where you go, maybe it wasn't wrong. Because if he's now in Milwaukee for 8 years, then he didn't make the wrong thought because that Nets team got flipped over anyway.
They're like the Nets are like the Walking Dead now.
Oh, they're awful. They have no hope. They have nothing.
But they play hard because they got no draft picks.
they play hard because what else are they going to do?
No, I'm excited. I'm going with my wife. We're gonna. I was telling you this before, but we're gonna go see next Friday. Go see LeBron James and the Cavs play the Nets. And I like going to Brooklyn. I get street parking, and it's cheaper ticket than the Garden. I also actually I should have told you about this before. I'm gonna see in a few weeks. I'm gonna see that the Nets play the Spurs because there's only a $50 ticket. I'm like, awesome. Man. I could have got a $90 ticket, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's a weeknight. Maybe it'll be kind of empty. I'll be able to sneak down. I did that for a game. I went to a few Nets games last year.
The Nets are,
I like it in Brooklyn better.
The Nets are really the Nets are troubling. It's crazy. Ron Artest, 2004 and 5, 25 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and he was the best defender.
This was he only 2004 2005. That's when he only played 17 games because he got suspended for the year for that.
Right. Sorry.
So you're thinking 03 04.
Yeah, 03 04, which was still 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in 73 games. He was locked down.
I would say Ron Artest's greatest moment and probably the greatest championship game press conference I ever heard was after the 2010 title and the Lakers won and Ron Artest gave it. And he's like, let's hide this champagne bottle. David Stern won't like that. Yeah. He said, that was great. That was a great press conference.
And he won that. I mean, that's the crazy thing with all this. It's we live long enough, the narratives change.
I didn't.
Donald Trump's the president.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't mean for us to go on a basketball riff because I'm going to want to promote this amongst like family and friends, and a lot of my family and friends don't care about basketball. I mean, some do. I mean, maybe I'll have some friends that care only about basketball and tell them, just listen to this 10-minute segment where we just riff on basketball. But back to podcasts, the whole format of podcasts and stuff. So there's 2 podcast interviewers that I think have gained a level of mastery at the long form interview. And one, Joe Rogan, who I know you're a fan of. Yeah. And he seems to do it the most informal way.
I don't even think he's a very good interviewer. He's a conversationalist because he had James Hetfield on for 2 hours. Uh-huh. And a part of me, when you have a guest like James Hetfield, I actually want you asking questions. I want to get stuff out of James Hetfield when you have him for 2 hours. And they talked for like 25 minutes about raising bees. It's like he was really into it, and that's great. Uh-huh. But I almost want a little more.
No, I understand that. That is the knock. I have a really good friend who loves Joe Rogan, and me and my friend, we always talk about comparing Joe Rogan to Tim Ferriss, who's the other long-form master, and Tim Ferriss is the complete opposite of Joe Rogan.
He's a straight rote reader of questions.
Well, what Tim Ferriss's strategy is, what he does is he likes to do like 2 to 3 hour podcast interviews because he always thinks the first 30 to 45 minutes is really just warming up the guests where he can start going.
So those aren't recorded? They're not, so those aren't, his whole thing isn't put out there?
No, I mean, he starts off, he has a format, he has a formula, but the thing is, it's sort of like the first 30 to 45 minutes is very scripted, then the last probably 15 to 20 minutes. In general, he might put the last 15 to 20 minutes somewhere towards the end, not the very end, but he always starts in the beginning, kind of like a biography, warming people up, making them feel comfortable on the terrain. Towards the end, he asks... he asks his basic question you see in the book, like, it's like what's a popular question? What's the book you gifted the most? Right. Another question he asks, what's the greatest purchase you did of $100 or less in the last year? So some interesting questions. Yeah. I remember when I started listening to Ezra Klein's podcast, I heard him say, so what book have you gifted the most? Or he asked it differently. I'm like, Ezra Klein must have gotten this from Tim Ferriss. And then I heard Ezra Klein on Tim Ferriss' podcast and it confirmed it. And that was an amazing interview. And what I loved about that interview is that Tim Ferriss finally, and I always was saying to my friend, criticizing Tim Ferriss, I'm like, Tim Ferriss never talks about politics. Such a political leader, never talks about it. And Tim Ferriss confirmed, I'm allergic to it. And he's like, because I can't differentiate the policy from the noise, the theater from the actual doing of it. And I like the fact that he essentially asked Ezra Klein to mentor him. I'm like, that's hopeful. He's got a huge audience.
Well, he's also very smart as a salesman to not lose half of his audience.
No, you're right. Well, I saw on like some of the Facebook posts and stuff, people are like, why are you having this liberal windbag on here? Or get a real conservative. I posted, I'm like, he had Glenn Beck on there. Yeah. You're right. He was smart not to have him.
Glenn Beck turned.
But it was so cool to see it from Tim Ferriss's eyes because he's such a smart guy, but he also like kind of the questions he was asking. Because sometimes it's like we do dive in to politics, not knowing the whole story. And Ezra Klein was brilliant in how he said it. He said oftentimes people talk about an issue and they don't even know what they're talking about because they're only talking about part of the story.
Yeah.
And he said, I train my people at Vox.com. I give them a story they got to start on, even if it's not relevant.
Even if it's not going to be posted.
Yeah, because he says, I want them to gain mastery on it. Because when you have mastery on the field, like, and Ezra Klein talked about it, he said, I got my big break because I gained a level of mastery in learning about the healthcare system in America. And that's really what opened up doors for me.
Yeah, mastery is what feeds intuition.
Yeah.
It gives you just have the answer and you don't understand why you have it and why it's right. That's why reading is so important. Constantly reading, constantly consuming. And maybe that's why I'm a bad spouse, because I just want to be consuming stuff.
No, I mean, well, it's like...
I mean, I'm not a bad... well, she might. I don't know.
No, I'm sure you're not a bad spouse. Right. Yeah. You're all right. You seem like you're beating yourself up about that and stuff. But that's why I like some books like are really brilliant. Like actually, when I think about it, Bill Simmons' book of basketball is brilliant because he's trying to answer the questions. It gives you a huge overview. And I actually gave that as a gift to a friend who grew up. He's a little older than me. He grew up on the Knicks winning the championships in the 70s. He's brilliant. He loved it. And in a way, I was like, well, I was concerned because I thought maybe the book of basketball was a little bit dated. And it's not. It's just essentially an encyclopedia book that's 5 years old. But that encyclopedia is still really good. Yeah. But usually encyclopedias get updated yearly. It just needs that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that we went over an hour again.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No way.
And you feel like we didn't even start yet, right?
Yeah, I know, because I feel like the last one, we were just talking about the election so much. Trump this, Trump that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it takes time to develop a chemistry and stuff, No,
but that's what conversation is. It's just a snippet in time.
No, you got to be kidding me. Are you serious that we really went over an hour here?
We did.
That is incredible.
And then I think we have to now try to
wind down.
Record your first one.
You think so? Oh, well, I guess that's why we got to cut this one short, huh?
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can do more, but I think it would be good to try it. So you're going to try to do your own podcast.
All right, let's do it.
We'll use we're going to use the tools of the trade I have here.
Okay.
To give you a good jump.
Who was saying it? Sometimes it's good to end prematurely because it's you wanting more instead of being like, that was too much. So
right. Yeah. There's probably people who are like, well, I want it over at 20 minutes.
I had a friend. I'm like, this was the meanest feedback I had. And my friend was like, I gave you 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, why do you have to sound like such a jerk? You know what I mean? It's like, I would have rather you said I didn't like it. Instead, I gave you 20 minutes. Like,
see, it's arrogant, but I think I feel like smarter than other people. So I don't want to take their feedback.
Oh, is that it? No, thank you. No, that's the question I want to have. You said something, and I meant to go back to that. Yeah. You were saying it's interesting because you're like, Josh, you like the feedback. I don't want the feedback. What was your point to that again?
I think that a lot of times, and we learn this in social media, I mean, you're asking it nicely, but I find that feedback, if someone says something, they're usually going to say something negative. Uh-huh. And I don't know how useful the feedback is. And I think if you get a lot of negative, though, that it actually can end up being detrimental because you might be on the right track, but people just might not get it yet. That's why I think feedback finds you whether you ask for it or not. I give you credit for asking for it. That's a thick skin. And you got good feedback. But I feel as though you get, like, you'll give good feedback, or I've gotten good feedback from people like Nuno, or I get good feedback. I remember Nuno was funny because he would be like, these 6 people heard it and they love it. And they were like really important people. I'm like, really? Like, this head coach listened to it? Like, this random head coach in the NFL? What?
I said to him, it's funny. I'm like, I almost feel like maybe Matthew having me on the show, you were on it, and then he follows up to me like, what is that? He's like, no, that's awesome, man. That just shows the diversity of Matthew. That shows how great his show is. Like, he made me feel really good. I'm like, oh my God, thanks so much. And he's like, yeah, get back on that show. I'm like, thanks so much, Nuno.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we would go forever, but I want to get your first one in the books.
All right,
so we'll do this, and it'll just pick up to another one.
All right, sounds good.
You.
All right,
thanks
that's
for
awesome.
coming up again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.